Yeah, I'm Colonel Patole. I was in Army Hospital in RNR. Now I've moved to Office of DGAFMS in the Ministry of Defense. So that's the change there. I had actually made it as a presentation earlier, but then we were told it will be a discussion. So I'll just open some of these slides. They'll be in random. Nothing really much of sense it would make. But there is a situation that I say that we face. Improper data, non-availability of medical information results in extraordinary hardship for a lot of serving and ex-service personnel who end up finding the records lost, unable to get the benefits processed in a timely fashion. There are innumerable instances about serving and ex-service personnel who are finding it almost impossible to get the benefits that they earned, despite the fact that the disabilities or the needs were evident for all of these. I am a service personnel. We must be thinking this is some of our generals' comment. No. This is Barack Obama in 2009. So that is the situation even in the US. Even patients who go from Afghanistan, right, in Germany, they have a hospital. And most of the records don't reach there. This will be at random, so I mean, I'll just show some facts. One thing which I like to say is, the industry gives us solutions. They are like banking, railways, airlines, the stock market. There you do a few things a million times. In a banking account, there are 7, 8, 10, 20 times of transactions. They are done a million times. In healthcare, there is text, there is audio, there is video, images, graphs, values. Every patient has a study. A study has a series. Series have findings. The studies are pre-op studies, per-op studies, post-op studies. For different sets of diseases, there are studies. So we do a million things a million times. I like to always compare it, like by train travel. In train travel, they say Indian Railways has a very big network and book a train anywhere. That's fine. But imagine if the Indian Railways had to give me a record of all my travel since I was born, of all the meals that I had in the train, all the train attendants who attended to me, where I checked in my luggage, who was the bed attendant who gave me the linen. That could be the size of the system that healthcare IT is. And we need an entirely different approach to it. This is, I don't know, the crowd must be mixed, partly industry, partly doctors. How many doctors? Can I just, okay, very few of us, so we are in a minority. So, but what people have been showing is IT in healthcare. I agree with the earlier two speakers, IT is there in most of the systems. In fact, CT, MRI scanner, the most IT systems existing. But IT as a hospital information system, we don't have much. Okay, I'll skip that. As I said, these are random things I had made. And I like to quote Dr. Sunil Shroff. I mean, it's a bit doctor-centric word. He says that there's a digital divide between the so-called computer pundits who haven't the faintest clue of the medical field and how the healthcare sector they try to address. We have different criteria. When we talk of evidence-based medicine, it isn't that the evidence which was there in a particular machine or the data that came in. Evidence-based medicine comes out of randomized controlled trials in a Cochrane database run all over the world. That is evidence-based medicine. And to get data into those randomized controlled trials, we need a common vocabulary. We don't even have a common vocabulary right now. Somebody uses cold to mean cold, somebody uses cold to mean common obstructive lung-way disease. There are two different words. And most of the solutions I saw in the industry, they have ICD-10. ICD-10 has 10,000 terms. HL7 already uses a reference information model which includes ICD-10. It includes SNOMED CT. SNOMED CT was again made by doctors, pathologists, systematized nomenclature in medicine. It has more than 3 lakh terms to describe every clinical thing. It has relationships between those terms which run into a million. And that is what the US is using. Now, again, this is Louis Castro, Senior Vice President, Siemens Healthcare. He says the biggest cost will be paying and training the labor force needed to create the network. Laborers will have the extremely difficult task of designing a system that thinks like a physician. Medicine and healthcare, we are now talking only of the healthcare information system part of it, not what my earlier speaker said. I agree with them 100%, IT is there. But in a HIS, this is the place where there is that digital divide. Okay, I'll skip all that. How the US, okay. Now, The department, these are things I leave as the last bit as a food for thought, that the discussion can go on. The Department of Defense, DoD, is working with the Department of Veterans Affairs, this is in the US, to create a new electronic health record, EHR system that will include healthcare information for veterans from the time they enter military service through the retirement. The two departments working together and all. Okay, now what we face is, it's not like a private hospital where a patient comes, he comes for a treatment, all his data exists. In our case, if a person reaches Army Hospital RNR, 10% of his record is generated there, 90% of his record is in earlier other hospitals, which is paper. How does that enter the system? In our case, we have to be more focused onto patient centricity rather than the institutional centricity. And this is what I'll come to, which they also realize. I'll skip all this, what the HL7 is, which I would have gone into, but now this is what somebody else brought out a point. This is just a slide on the financial services, how much they spend, and healthcare down below you can see spends only 2%. We need to increase the healthcare budgets, very good for the industry, this suggestion of mine. This is US Veterans Administration, similar to what the Army runs. Indian Army is also something like that, 30,000 bedded hospital, about 4-5 million is the dependent personnel. This is their Department of Defense thing. Now we went into this. US Vista, they spent US $3.09 billion in 25 years and it's now acknowledged as one of the top leading, not the best, but the top leading applications. The US Vista VA is a Veterans Administration application. Department of Defense services the active duty personnel. They had a AHLTA, they spent 4.3 billion years in 13 years. Now, this is the government audit office report of the US Department of Defense. This is equivalent of a CAG, and we know CAG has caused quite a stir in India right now. So GAO is similar. What were the comments? Lack of an integrated system perpetuated the reliance on paper-based records. This is what you find. We have something going in the system, the doctor has to write something on the paper. As long as you do not eliminate the paper, I'm telling you, the doctor will not work on the system. If he has to sign something and type in somewhere, no doctor, no clinician, no specialist is ever going to work on it. To this end, in 1997, the department initiated CHCS, something they called it. The Americans like jargon, so an abbreviation. So it had planned to divide the system acquisition to 7 software releases to be delivered incrementally by June 2006 at a cost of $4.3 billion. In November 2005, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs announced a change in the name, typical of bureaucracies. I'm part of it, CHCS2 to AHLTA, Armed Forces Health Longitudinal Technology Application. Then the DoD has initiated efforts to improve system performance, enhance functionality, and plans to continue efforts to stabilize the AHLTA system by 2015. Now this is October 2010. What their auditor says. When fully developed, AHLTA was envisioned to provide the department with a modernized health information system that would generate and maintain a comprehensive, lifelong, computer-based patient record for every soldier, sailor, airman, marine, their family members and others entitled. The electronic health record was expected to give healthcare providers real-time access to individual military population healthcare information. That's all jargon, all big sounding words. Then what the auditor says. However, after more than a decade of effort to deliver the system, the department has recently begun planning for a new electronic health record system. This is the state in which we are. This is where, I don't want to sound like an evangelist for HL7, but HL7 version 3 is what I found is the thing which delivers the solution. Not version 2.6, which most of our industry here is selling. 2.6, they'll come, what does the applicant say? HL7 compliant, sir. Yes, sir. You ask him HL7 version 3? No, sir. That is the team A which works in the US. I've seen team B which is selling over here. And in certain industry, I've seen there's a team C. They follow a fancy management word called product life cycle enhancement. You have made an application in VB in 2000. Then somebody says, can you continue selling this application more? Somebody says, yes, good, we'll put a web wrapper around it, web enable it. They'll come and sell you the same product. This is from the management point of view, they are doing the product life cycle enhancement. But we are doctors, we want something else. So for that, over here, this is what HMISS Analytics, one of the people in the US who have set up how to evaluate a hospital. Stage 0 is all three ancillaries not installed. Stage 1, lab, radiology and all comes in. Till stage 7 is a complete EMR is formed. US 2010 December data, look at it, 1%. Bulk of the hospitals are in nursing, clinical documentation and a PACS which is outside the RIS. I don't understand when vendors come to me and tell me we have come from US and you got everything, and I tell them this is the US data. So this is where we need to concentrate, and I feel it is HL7 which gives you a reference information model. It gives you the vocabulary to use, which will be a controlled vocabulary. Every coding will be using those terms. When you use those terms is what is the next thing which HL7 has already made, medical logical modules. We talk of clinical decision support systems. What they spoke of is the management clinical decision support system. I am talking of a doctor's clinical decision support system. That parses the vocabulary, controlled vocabulary of more than 1 million terms, comes to decisions, and it's called a medical logical module, and then helps me out. Most of us who have worked on mammography systems, they would have seen in mammography MLMs already there. Mammography, digital mammography images, you'll find an MLM giving you a diagnosis, what is the state of the tumor. So these are just random thoughts that I put through, and I think my solution and what I feel is we have to go the way of what is called HL7, and that is when we will have something called translational research, which is the incoming thing now. It is a bench to bedside research. It helps the next of the industry which is involved with doctors. One is the IT industry, the other is the healthcare industry, drug pharmaceutical industry. But that is the one which is heavily dependent on medical informatics. It uses vocabularies of SNOMED CT, LOINC, whatever. So huge trials, like a cardiac trial which is going on all over the world. What will happen? There will be common terminology used, common data will go back. So analysis of that research will be faster. And why is it called bench to bedside? From the bench the product is made, goes to the bedside, the result comes back to the bench within 3 to 4 months, so that drugs are created faster, protocols are evolved faster. So this should be the holy grail of what we should aim at as translation research. Through what? Without sounding evangelist for HL7, I'll say still it is HL7 version 3 with its clinical document architecture, very well laid out, documented. In US today you cannot use anything which is not compliant with it. It has to be certified by the Office of the National Coordinator of Healthcare IT. There are 7-8 organizations which certify it. It's a certified EHR, you use it. It's like a FDA approval. Probably we need something like that to come in our country, where we will be told, okay, these are certified EHR, this is what you use, this is how your data will come out common. I think with these random slides, I'll rest my case. Thank you.
US is still using HL7 version
2 for reporting of public health data to the old systems, but the new one, if you see what is there in the High-Tech Act and now declared in May or so, for the clinical data, it is HL7 version 3. Reporting to all public health systems, your data, what happened, how many, let's say, cases of it.
It is there, but 3 is very recent and it's not mandatory. It's still not mandatory yet. For the transition, they have given time, and even if you take ICD, even 10 is not mandatory. Even there are insurance firms in the US who are still working on 9. So that it takes time. By the time 3 is active, then they would have 4. So all those things are there.
Here it is. This is CFR Part 170 is the final rule. 20th July 2010. If you should read this thing, download it.
Effective for all new products.
All new products,
all
yes.
New products.
And I don't have a product in the army, so I'm going to look for this. I'm not going to look for something old.
Yeah.
No?
So new
My question is this: in the entire presentation you have given us data on the US.
Yeah, because my system is comparable in size to this.
Indian data means, are we going and making ourselves adapted to HL7?
Yeah, I'll say that. In the nation, we do not have any standards evolved as yet. Concrete standards given by the
My
country.
question is,
So can we have the question subsequently, if you don't mind?
Are we moving towards adaptation or adaptation to
As far as the armed forces are concerned, we are heading towards it. If there's any government organization, we can share a detailed RFP, runs into every parameter given. It is about 200, 300 pages. Everything included in it, we evolved it. And this is completely HL7 based, because we are a bureaucracy. We start something in 2010. I know it's going to materialize in 2013-14. And for that, we have catered and factored this in, because US has got it, France has got it, Japan has got it, Korea has got it. And we found our system is similar in size to the US Department of Defense. I'm not looking like you in a private sector, tomorrow you'll get a system. My system will come in 2015. That's a fact.